Hey guys, Kyle here from Animist. I wanted to share some of my thoughts about the magic of oral storytelling and why I think reviving oral storytelling traditions is important today to our survival as a species. And the reason for that is because they connect us to the animate earth. They connect us to this magical dance of nature around us. And for most of human history, we had these oral storytelling languages where the words were based on the movements and the sounds of the nature around us. And they gave us this connection because what was around us was examples for how we can live in these situations we lived in, and these stories we learned, which allowed cultures to be passed down over, tens of thousands of years before there was any form of writing to maintain them in books and libraries. And around 2,500 years ago, literate culture started to advance around the world, and there was a development in the West in particular of this alphabet in Greece and some of the Semitic cultures of the Middle East, where they had these separate alphabets where the words no longer had this direct relationship to nature. And as a result, people began to live more in this abstract notions of things, and they began to shape their identity more in that way. And a great example of the kind of bridge between the oral storytelling cultures and the more modern literate cultures that worship books and seek to understand things through books is Socrates. So Socrates did not believe in writing. He thought it was a bad idea, that it was important to have this dialogue with people. So he was, in a sense, an oral first person. But his student Plato wrote down Socrates' stories and these tales of how Socrates had this Socratic dialogue with people. And the people of Athens then were very much an oral storytelling people. And they would just, when they were asked about what is justice or what is virtue, they would give examples from their lives. They would only be able to have context for that from their own lives. And Socrates would question them, be like, well, why? What really is justice? And they would be like, well, it's a situation when people do this to each other that's extracted from their life. But Socrates would keep asking in this Socratic dialogue method of like, why? What really is justice? And then what emerged is these ideas that words have these concepts, these abstract meanings that are separate from maybe the day-to-day reality around us. And you can come to know what rights are, and what justice is, and what equality is, and what virtue is, as these philosophical concepts that are separate from the stories that we were telling in our oral context, in these mythologies that spread and maintain civilization. So, or at least the early oral storytelling parts of civilization. And then pre-hunter-gatherer civilizations as well. But basically, this led to this shift over time. And Plato even made it kind of emphasize in, I think it's Phaedrus, one of the first books that he compiled of Socrates' dialogues, that it's important not to get too caught up in these word-based concepts that we can lose touch with the world around us. And I think today, over this course of the last 2,500 years, we've abstracted things so much that people live in their minds now so much, and they're not connected to the world around them a lot. And that's allowed us to do all these things, like it's allowed us to create these amazing technologies and works of art and literature. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but what we need to do is we need to reconnect to these ancient oral storytelling cultures and practices where we actually feel connected to the world around us, and that nature is not this abstract environment out there, and we're in here in this like real, Descartesian reality, but we are part of nature. We are an integral part of it, and it is us. And we need to reconnect to that. And I think oral storytelling, the magic it creates of enchantment with the local landscape, with the stories of your people and your lineages that go back to the soil, the earth, the air, the water, is what we need today, because in the modern times a lot of people have lost that. Most of the modern cultures have lost that, and I think a lot of what remains without that is this like depression and anxiety and a lack of meaning and frustration that you never know where it really comes from. And I think it comes from not having rootedness in the earth. And by learning these oral stories, again, learning to animate our perspective of the environment around us, to see ourselves as part of this living dance all around us that we feel in a forest and we feel when we're connected to nature, I think that is kind of going to be the future of education, going to be the future of the species we are. Reconnecting to that, and creating a world again in connection with nature where we don't just exploit it to the point of our own destruction, but we have checks and balances, because we have this deeper sense of connection and reverence and relationship, and really this connection of ethics of we can't continually take more than we give, into the future, or we're violating a relationship, a sacred relationship, and the result of that is that way of life, evolution will not continue, because it's destructive, and it might take a period of time, but we will have to go back if we are to survive, if we are to thrive on this planet, in a way that understands, that nature is part of us, and that we have to protect it, and we have to live in balance with it and harmony. Okay, all right, thanks for listening.